Well, welcome back, everyone, to the ConTech Exec Podcast. I have got a repeat offender with me, Alan Espinoza, Reconstructive AI, Reconstructive. Is it Reconstructive?
Yeah, Reconstructive AI.
Reconstructive AI. Alan, we talked in our Future Tech and had a great conversation. I told you I'd get you back on for the what we call the Texas drive time, conversation, a little bit longer, something a little bit more in depth. And, I really want to know, have you found that superintendent that was playing Candy Crush and turned him around and got him going in the right direction?
That specific superintendent, I just leaned into it. I just hung out with him more and I played Candy Crush with him. And eventually we got the rapport going. Yeah. And I made him understand that, hey, you can play Candy Crush. It's okay.
Yeah.
But I also need you to use Bluebeam, man.
Right. Yeah. I need you to get this part done,
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, okay, so that leads us to the question of technology. Everybody, all the talk around it is, if you just embrace it, if you just use it, it will help you speed up your process. It will help you be able to get to your Candy Crush hour a little bit faster. Thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that's the whole basis of the word technology in and of itself.
Okay.
I think it's Greek, right? It's to help. It's an aid. It is a tool. Absolutely. So it is supposed to help you do your work faster. The problem, and what we talked about last time, is that people are averse to trying new things. If they have to learn a new thing, that initial wall that they hit scares them. And that's the learning curve. Anyone who adopts technology successfully is gonna hit the wall at first.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a mindset kind of thing, which is why in my talk at our Future Tech, I really focus on the human psychology aspect of it, which is why I, jokingly right now, I just said that, befriending the superintendent and eventually kind of getting the point across is what led him to using Bluebeam in the end, because there is a lot of work to be done with the human psychology aspect of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think anything worthwhile is going to take some effort, and it's going to take a little bit of time to, really pull it all together. It's probably going to be a little bit more work than you're used to doing before it becomes a little bit less work. And I believe that there is a part of this that that's the misnomer that's kind of out there. The pitch deck would say, well, this is going to reduce your time by 20%. You're going to spend this much amount less. And it's like, yes, eventually. And yes, if you measure it and really find out how much maybe you're going to save. But if you've got zero baseline for this, right? You have no idea how much time you're spending on RFIs or how much time you're spending on takeoffs or how much time you're spending on submittals or whatever process you're working with. If you've got no baseline, you're not going to know anyway. You're still going to get the thumb in the air. I think the wind is blowing in this direction.
100%.
Right.
So, I 100% agree. I think the problem we fall into, not just in construction technology, but tech in general, is these companies that create the tools, they have to sell them. And in selling them, they focus on features and the value that they bring. And these values are an average of what you can expect. But that's only if you've implemented it correctly. And so if you don't actually take the time to implement correctly, roll it out in a way that makes sense for all the people on your team, even going so far as to how does it affect that individual superintendent, you might see a lot of failure rate. You might not see the level of ROI that you expected. And then that leaves a sour taste in your mouth of why did we invest all this money into, Autodesk or Procore or something and take out these huge IT budgets for something that isn't sticking or isn't helping as much as we thought it would.
Right. So you and I touched on that kind of briefly. It was kind of part of your keynote speech. And you talked about the failure of implementation. I don't know. I've heard it's 70% of, software rollouts fail. I don't know if that's an exact percentage. It seems It seems pretty high, but you tell me, what do you think? What's your thought on that?
For general technology implementation, 70% sounds high, but if you look at it in not 7 out of 10 implementation projects fail, but 7 out of 10 people struggle with having a tool implemented.
Okay.
Now it starts making more sense, because that is on track with what I've experienced in rolling out Bluebeam and rolling out those iPads and rolling out BIM 360, clash detection, BIM in general as a process at Universal Studios. The amount of people that came up to me, why are we using BIM? I thought BIM was Revit. The lack of understanding of something.
Yeah.
Just because a tool exists doesn't mean it's going to be useful unless you implement it. And if you don't have someone dedicated, or the tech vendor doesn't actually come in, I can see 70%. That's why I wasn't shocked when I read the MIT study last year saying that 95% of AI implementations aren't yielding the results that are expected.
Yeah.
Because if you just expect a hammer to hammer itself, it's kind of on you.
I think I wrote that yesterday, not the hammer part, but Elena Tuttle of Hardline did a post on LinkedIn about, hey, we need to keep the humans making the decisions. Stop thinking that AI is going to make a decision for you. And I was like, yeah, it's the exact same reason we don't let screw guns put the screws where they need to go.
Right? Yes.
It's like, yeah, we cannot expect a tool, something that has, it has functions and features, but it is not the brain. It is not the consciousness that, may be touted out there. The rumor mill may have, purported it to be. It is strictly, it is strictly a tool right now. And it should, I feel maybe should always remain a tool, something subservient to what we need to do, and not having it make decisions for humans. I think humans need to make decisions, but maybe some folks I'm tired of making decisions. You just take over.
I 100% get that. And that's one of those slippery slopes with AI, because a lot of these AI tools, even the ones that I use, I would love to be able to let my Claude just run in the background and do its own thing and not have to bother me with context. But I understand the importance of the human in the loop that we all talk about. But when you start thinking of the future, the far future of where AI could lead, it does start going to a place, taking the tool that is AI and start implementing into the tool that is robotics. And now all of a sudden you have a thinking machine that can maybe do autonomous work. What does that mean for the future of construction? What does that mean for the humans involved? Do we end up like WALL-E, humans just kind of sitting around watching the job site, making sure things get, it does pose a good question on that, but I agree with you. I tend to agree. Right now, where we're at, AI, just like everything else in construction tech, it's a tool. So the human is the important part.
And I think the most important part, and I want to get your take on this, is how we're training it. We've got certain contract structures right now, which basically say, we're really concerned about watching out for our scope and not really concerned about watching out for the project, the asset, right? And so as we train AI to look at it the same way we're looking at, are we really fixing anything if we're training it the same way we're misbehaving today?
No, definitely not. That's an awesome point to make, because Claude will absolutely give you different outputs and think differently depending on the input that you give it. So
that is correct.
An architect and engineer is going to get a completely different output than the GC will, than the owner will.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that I'm seeing a little bit more of in AI, at least, is a lot of people want to do the disciplines that they studied in school or that they have a passion for. What they don't want to do is the busy work that comes with it. I think most architects that I've spoken to want to design. They want to build buildings. They want to design them creatively, draw them out, things like that. They don't necessarily want to be doing the QA/QC checks or answering the RFIs, the CA services, the coordination itself necessarily. That's all collaboration work, and that means a ton of people in the room and communicating with them and writing emails. That's the stuff that AI can start taking things off of people's plate. And I think what happens is that eventually, hopefully, the relationships between the parties, between the AE and the GC, that mistrust starts to get fixed. And I think the only way we actually start moving towards a new model of construction where these AI models are trained on the health of the project as opposed to the health of who the account owner of Claude is in this instance would be to start changing the contract types. As someone who's worked in IPD, in design build, the contract types are there for that type of collaboration. But are they effective right now? Not really, because at the end of the day, when you have to end up getting bogged down with the architect didn't coordinate this, or they didn't do this, or this isn't constructible, and you start the finger pointing, that's when the distrust starts to happen. And that's when everyone starts to align with, well, then I don't care what the GC says, as long as I'm protected. And that's where that selfishness comes in. That's when the AI model is trained with what's important to you, as opposed with what.
Right. It's like its focus will be the focus of whatever your technology is, whether it's AI or, even just something that's, searching, documents for whatever. It will be focused on whatever you prompt it to become. And so I get concerned about that because, again, we talked about this in another thing. So it's an accelerator, right? So we can accelerate our knowledge up to finding out faster where our true bottleneck is, but are we solving the bottleneck, right? Are we putting ourselves in a position to be successful in the next 5 years that, actually has an impact? I mean, ultimately, it goes back to that big, McKinsey study, right? The McKinsey study that says, for the past 50 years or 30 years or whatever it is, we've actually gotten worse at being productive in the construction industry. And everybody keeps pondering, scratching their head. Why is that? Why can't we be more productive, even though we've got all the technology on the planet? What is it that is creating this anomaly? And I the way I look at it is like, well, when you do the same thing over and over again, it's truly the definition of insanity, right? I mean, when you continue to do the same things, obviously it's something in your structure, it's in your process that is creating the problem. So, as simple as it can be, the problem is us, right? It's not our tech, it's not our tools. We've got better tools, we've got better tech. Well, the problem's us. So is it because we just can't get along? We can't seem to, get past our arguments before the job starts. I mean, if you look at a contract from the beginning, from day one, I mean, it's all, hey, CYA, CYA, CYA.
Yep, it sure is. I think, not to sound pessimistic, but that kind of just is human nature. I think once, when things are going great, it's very easy to cheer and celebrate collectively. But when you inevitably hit roadblocks in construction, it's also just as easy to point fingers and to try to find a root cause and to blame. And
yeah,
that's just human nature. I think the reason that we can't seem to get productive is probably a mix of we've got this human nature of we have to point fingers and blame when things go wrong. And so it's a little bit of, we still just can't quite get the team together. It's still separate teams. It's still separate phases of construction. And B, I think you said this earlier. It's when you're accelerating dysfunction, when you're accelerating bad practices, bad workflows, that's what you're just going to get more bad. You're just going to get, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? And we talked about the role of data in construction, that whole 96% of data going unused. The fact that we're generating that much data and we have all this raw data and historical files and lessons learned that we're not actually learning from, that we're not taking the time to learn from, or we don't have the bandwidth to learn from. What's the point? All it's doing is it's adding more noise to the chaos so that you can't actually find what you're looking for. So you can't take the lesson away that you need to take in that next project. And so that's why I'm hopeful that AI, in taking away some of the repetitive jobs, some of the tasks that people don't like to do when they have to interact with each other, answering emails, responding to RFIs, things like that. And by also providing a way to take that debt, the digital debt, all that data that goes unused, and make it usable, make it surfaceable, be able to talk to your data and have insights on it, I think you kind of start solving the problem of productivity, you know?
Mm-hmm. I hear you, because I do think that we do spend a lot of time, that there's an administrative state that we've kind of gotten ourselves into in that whole CYA process, right? There's this administrative state that we've now had to focus on because that's what's in the contract. That's what's in, the language of even even the prints, like even the drawings, have got the language in it that says, hey, you need to look at this first. You need to look at this first. And by the way, my arrows and omissions basically tells you that if you find something wrong, you got to let me know so that we can, fix it. Otherwise, it's not my fault, right? So it's all there to say there's administrative level that we have escalated. And so we spend a lot of time focusing on that administrative level we kind of hate, right? And now we can't get to the build. So yes, I agree with you. I think utilizing AI and utilizing these tools to get us past that administrative level so we can actually solve the problems to go build what we need to build. It's a big, big plus, right? And then that gets us back to that implementation stage. How do we get these workflows to now how do we get people to recognize that these workflows that we're trying to engage with are actually going to be helpful, getting you from point A to point B so that you can build what you need to build?
Well, we touched on it a little last time. I think letting the product speak for itself sometimes is a good way. I think when you actually have tangible use cases, especially when you can find a use case for the individual level so that they actually have a connection with the tool, that's great. But then you can also gamification, right? Incentives, figure out ways to get things to stick. We talked about how effective Duolingo is at keeping me constantly playing every day because I've got my streak and I want to maintain my streak. Things like that, I think in construction, we focus so much on we just have to do our role. We forget that we're all people. We're all people. And when I think back at my time on the job site, when we wanted folks to listen to safety instructions better, when we wanted them to, behave a certain way, and we associated it with prize cards or a prize wheel, or when we did like barbecues, that's when things stick. It sticks when you're rewarding people for doing the right thing, when you're reminding people to do the right thing via giving them rewards. That tiny little bit of human psychology, I think, works. And I think just because it's AI, I wouldn't look past it either. I think any tool is going to take a little coaxing to get the end user to actually use it effectively and want to use it. I think eventually the benefit is just, hey, once you use it enough, you'll see. Then the features like, oh, wow, there was a learning curve. But once I got used to it, dang, now I personally, Alan, can't live without my AI now, right?
Right.
And I bet, Robert, you use it daily, right?
Every day. Yeah. Exactly. I'm into the deep end of the AI world over here. And it's not something I started out wanting to do because I did have a lot of disagreements with it. I felt I'm older, I felt as though maybe it's just not something that I need to get into. But then I'm like, no, this is really something we need to understand. For me, it's because of other challenges that I see in the industry. And so I have a whole nother company that I started based on that. But for me to really dive into it, it's kind of like, as I tell my mom, she calls, I talk to my mom, try to talk to her like every week, and we have this conversation. She goes, I thought you didn't like AI. And I said, no, I hate it, Mom. I really do. I really hate it. I said, but I got to understand it because it doesn't do me any good to, hate something and not try to understand it. You know what I mean? And not try to go, okay, wait a minute. There's something I'm missing. And I think that's one of the things that I've kind of come across. And the reason I know so much more about it now is because I do understand that the way I speak to it, what I prompt it with, what I tell it to do, right? What I'm asking from it is really all about me, right? It's really all about my questions have to be correct if I want to get good output. And guess what? That has caused me to go, okay, wait a minute. From a human standpoint, is that the way that we treat each other now? Are we really asking each other the right questions, right? Are we really talking to each other going, hey, why are we doing this? That's a very open-ended question. Why don't we point that a little? Why are we doing this, this, and this? Getting a little bit more detailed. And by the way, the output that I'm expecting from you is this, this, and this. We don't talk to each other that way. And so therefore we have this weird expectation like it's suddenly going to just come out of everyone, and it's not. I don't care if you're dealing with AI or if you're dealing with your brother-in-law, down the street. It's just not going to happen for you if you're not getting clear in your communication.
Percent. And you described the quintessential human problem there. I think whether it's construction, the brother-in-law, or a marriage, bad communication is bad communication.
That's right.
Blank. If man, you made that sound like exactly what I've always struggled with and I'm guilty of it. I think we all are. Sometimes you're so stuck in your role. What are my responsibilities? What do I need to do? That the second that you need something from someone else, you're expecting them to do their role, their responsibility. And you don't expect to have to be the babysitter, the person reminding them, the person who's telling them exactly what you need from them. You just kind of expect your mind to be read because, well, I'm the project engineer on site. You're the architect. Answer the RFI. Like that's what I want. But it's like, why did it take you 2 weeks? Why didn't you address this thing? Why didn't you look at the drawings or the photos that I attached? Like, there's all these things that it's like extra work. Now, all of a sudden, it compounds the work that you're already having to do to stay on top of someone else. But you're right. It's a huge fault in human communication.
Yeah, the world of expectation is, filled with unicorns and fairy tales. Because of that. And I think it's funny how I've gone down this road with, Claude and working on code and figuring all this, just figuring stuff out. And every time that I do it, when I do it a little bit more and I work with it a little bit more, what comes back at me is simply a reflection of how I posed the question. And it's so funny that I go, okay, well, I got nobody to blame but myself for this trash output that I've got. You know what I mean? Because I can't get mad at it. You know what I mean? I can't.
I get mad at it sometimes.
I know. I can get mad at it, but it doesn't do any good to get mad at it because I'm still not getting the results that I want.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of essential with, I always say you can't recognize your wins unless you go through a few losses. You got to lose, you got to lose a few times. You're going to get beat up and you're going to fall down. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're trying to learn how to ride a bike or whether you're trying to, climb a mountain, whatever you're going to do. Guess what? You're going to get some scrapes and you're going to get some scars. It's just going to happen. And guess what? You got to get back up, brush yourself off. Hopefully you didn't kill yourself, kind of thing. Get back at it and try again. But don't keep trying the same thing. And so it kind of gets back to where we were. Why do we keep going down the same thing? I sometimes get frustrated with the whole idea of CPM schedules. I know they're needed. Not to be too specific, but I know that they're needed. But we put them in the contract language like they're God. And truth is that schedule is just made up. It's kind of like, yeah, it's close. We're gonna get close. It's not quite exact. But then you're gonna lock it in. Let's lock this in. You know what I mean? And I get it. You got to set some dates, but you also have to be realistic with it.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. As someone, who worked in theme parks. Our date was, this is when corporate wants to open the theme park.
Yeah.
And so our scheduler would just work backwards, would just be like, well, I hope we can fit everything by this date.
Yeah.
Sure, we're doing it. So yeah, I completely, I see the CPM sometimes it's a backwards pass. You're just kind of.
I always call it the pre-construction optimism. Everybody's optimistic on that pre-construction phase. We're like, I know we screwed up that last one and we probably screwed up the last 5, but I think this one is the one.
this time. And that's what you were saying, right? The always doing the same thing, that's crazy. That's the definition of insanity, right? Every project we're going, nah, I know we messed it up last time, but we'll definitely be on time and on budget on this one.
Yeah, right. I mean, that has been, it's like status quo. It's almost like, Voldemort or whatever. It's like the name that shall not be spoken. We shall not, naysay the CPM schedule, at the beginning of the job. We can't really call it out because this is what we want. This is a nice goal, and everybody, we've got to be rah rah.
Yeah, it's not unrealistic. It's aggressive.
We've rephrased it. We've marketed it. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
All right. Well, Reconstructive. What's new at Reconstructive since our last conversation? Or can you tell me, is it all classified information?
Nothing's classified. In fact, I'm trying to figure out a way to start building more in public so I can, social media content it up, I guess. No, since ENR, I've been meeting with tons of people, especially with some of the folks that stopped by afterwards to wish me well, to thank me for the talk that they heard. I've made a lot of partnerships. So I've started working with a lot of folks in tech startups. So a couple people who are currently in Y Combinator, which is cool because that's one of the things I'm applying for. So I'm trying to work on my application for Y Combinator summer 2026 or fall 2026, I suppose.
It stays summer around here for till October. So whatever, we're good.
It's their nomenclature. Yeah, it's definitely summer here too. It's just to get into their summer cohort, you had to apply in April in the spring. So they're always one off. So I'm working on that. I'm also trying to kind of hone down my idea, my pitch deck to something that I can pitch to a general contractor like Suffolk or a Turner, who these guys have gotten so big in the last 5-10 years that they've all now inside of Turner and Suffolk. They've got their own incubators, accelerators, VC investment arms. So, for someone who's in construction technology, I think I approached it at first okay, I have this idea, I have this work, I have a couple clients, I want to expand, I want to start hiring people to help me and grow a real product, something that isn't just services based. And I was thinking of traditional VC routes, angel investment routes. But, I had a great talk last month with a couple of people that I met at the talk from the Middle East. A Turkish person, a Tunisian person. We kind of created this little mini working partnership. And one of them is a PhD. He's got a MBAs from MIT, smart guy. And he's like, why aren't you applying to GC incubators? I'm like, that's a thing? So I learned this year that GC incubators are a thing.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I'm applying for.
Yeah. No, Suffolk's got a really good one, right? Suffolk.
Yes.
It's got a good one. Hamza Shambari from Haskell. Yeah. So Hamza's got a good one that, what do they call that? Disrupt Tech, I think. But yeah, he's got a good program there too.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I'm still in that early stage growth area, but like I mentioned, I am working with a couple of clients. So that's nice to have a little bit of experience actually implementing some solutions. In one case, I'm kind of out of the box custom AI agent that does some of that repetitive work. It's a lot of managing their CRM, reaching out, finding prospects. That's one of the use cases that I hear a lot. We just need to find work or we need to find clients. So especially in construction, where do you go to find those clients? So I'm building AI agents that can kind of scrape either LinkedIn, social media, things like that, but also more importantly, looking at county websites, looking at where permits are being pulled. Because when you start seeing permits getting pulled for land usage, something's cooking. And so getting in the door early, that's helpful. So I've got one company that's looking to be able to buy mineral rights from new wells that are going to come up. And that's something that I'm able to kind of help them target by using AI to constantly check their website, to download the records, to crawl through the records and then build out a CRM. So things like that. It's a process though.
Well, and good though. It's great application for it because again, it's a ton of data, right? That it's hard to parse through unless you ask it the right questions, right? It's not something that humans do naturally. Humans tend to, glaze over the details a lot of times, and they love it when it's brought to their attention, but it's not something they go, on the deep dive for, right? It's not like in the movies. The movies totally lead us wrong. You know what I mean?
They do.
They really do. They make us think that, there are these geniuses out there that are going on these. No, I'm sorry. That's not happening. These folks are utilizing technology in order to, find out what they need to find out. Most of the time, they're probably glazing over some of the details on their own. They're not actually reading the 6,000 page article or 6,000 page, report. They're probably, getting to the meat of it with some sort of technology, right?
They just want the insights. Yeah.
Right. I mean, again, I feel sorry for the people that were writing those things, but at the end of the day, it's like, and we've got to be able to capture that information somehow in order to get to that next level. So I think it's a great application, great starter points. And one of the things that I wanted to say too was that another place to be, and I hope this is happening. I haven't done enough research to see that it is. You've got these incubators and these different things that are happening with these large GCs. But the underserved market, right, that 70% of GCs, whether they're mid-market, trying to get a little bit larger, those places are gold mines, right? Because not only these folks are the folks that need it, right? They're ready to scale somehow, but they've plateaued at some level where they just don't quite have exactly what they need, or they don't have the intelligence within their own system that can take them to that next level. And they're looking for it. They're trying to figure it out. They're trying to wrap it around their brain. Meanwhile, they're trying to, whatever they're building, whether they're electrical contractor or they're just a GC who's trying to figure out, where that next job's coming from or how can I fit in, But again, there's so many details around that. I was thinking about this just the other day. You start thinking about like a mid-sized GC who may want to go start working, data centers, those types of things. Well, there's certain levels of those data centers, right? Well, and there's certain things that you got to meet. You got to meet the bonding requirements, the insurance requirements. You got to do all these things. How do they know where all that information is coming from? Like, what do I need to do to get in to go do this? How do I scale from there to there? There's a lot of information in there. There's a lot of pitfalls inside of all that information. Well, guess what? There's tools out there, you know what I mean, that can help you, especially if you're developing some sort of agentic AI or whatever. That's like, hey, let's go scrape the internet for this information and see where those pitfalls are going to be and maybe where you might want to step into this next, level and what that's going to take.
Exactly. And that kind of reminds me of something we spoke about last time. And it's that when you're a small company like that, you rely on a limited set of people that kind of operate the business from here. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of knowledge and relationship building and knowing where to look for things that's in here. And so if it's the owner or if it's, your big project director or PMs or whoever it may be in your organization, you're always at like a risk of losing that person. And if that knowledge isn't retained digitally somehow, what happens? What happens to your business, And you're starting to see a lot of that when these firms are either closing down because of retirement or they're selling off to bigger GCs because of retirement. And, there's a place for the big guys, of course, but I'm with you. My very first job in construction, it was a government job. And so we had very strict metrics to hit to make sure that we employed small disadvantaged businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses. We had all these metrics to hit. And I saw the value in it because it helped the community. It helped the immediate area of Melbourne, Florida, where we were building this project by hiring all these people that were locals, that had small businesses that needed that cash flow. And so I start to worry, and it's something that we spoke about. I start to worry about what happens when AI starts kind of learning all that context. What happens when the AIs start to take that information that's in your head and make it like digital knowledge? I'm the kind of person that like I see the fear that people have of AI because of that. I think a lot of people think I'm only valuable because of what I know. I don't want AI to learn everything that I know because then they don't need me.
Yeah.
That's something that, it's one of those like AI fears that it depends on how it's used, right? It depends on how that company is using it. And so for me, it's all about framing it in like a competitive way. It's if you're wanting to keep up with the big guys, if you're wanting to go to that next step, it's not about replicating, like your top guy's brain and having it in your company database now and then getting rid of them. No, really, it's about making that person's brain accessible to everyone else in your organization.
Well, it
It's
goes
about
back.
sharing that knowledge
Yeah.
back, right? So that
What's the
everyone,
communication thing, right?
yeah,
It goes back to, hey, we didn't ask our senior superintendent the right questions to get the right answers, right? And so we don't have that knowledge base for this particular project because I asked the wrong question, right? And that information then didn't filter down to the project managers or project engineers and all those types of things. So again, our communication, how we ask the questions, how we communicate with one another needs to be captured, right? So then that way we can maybe replicate that communication. Maybe we learn a little bit better about how to speak with one another. It's funny that there's this program that I did at my last job is called, and it's a company of sorts, and there's different things like that, but it's called Culture Index. And basically there's different types of people, right? There's the people like me who are a bit more autonomous, like you wind me up and you set me off and I go. I don't need a lot of instruction. I can pretty much figure it out. You know what I mean? Please, whatever you do not give me a list. I will burn it in front of you. You know what I mean? I've got this. Don't worry. Just wind me up. Let me go. And then there are other people that are list people. You give them a list of things to do. They're very like, okay, I've got my list. I'm going to check all these off and it's going to be done like to a T because they cannot stand. It's kind of like the gamification thing. I can't stand the fact that I'm not going to win that next goal, so I'm going to check that one off the list. Done. There's different types of people for different positions and different jobs, and some positions and the way that we communicate with them is different. And so we can't just say, hey, we're going to talk to you this way and we're going to talk to you the same way and talk to you the same way. No, everybody's different. We've got different levels of communication. It's like that weird love language thing that they used to talk about, right? It's the same thing. It's just at a work level, right? There's different ways that you talk to people. AI is no different, really. You talk to it in a certain way to get a certain result. And I think if we can say to those folks who are worried about AI taking their job, look, if I can teach you how to speak with AI so that it becomes helpful to you, it becomes the tool that you can use instead of that nasty, coworker who's trying to take your position. If I can do that, maybe we're getting somewhere.
I agree with that 100%. You kept making me think of like learning styles. Like when I was in school, like that, people are completely different. Some people learn auditory, some people are visual learners, some people have to tactile and actually do the thing.
Yeah.
I think I'm a mix of all the above, right? So.
Right. Yeah. And everybody's got different levels of it. But it's kind of like the kids that excel. Some of the kids that excel in high school maybe don't do so well in college. You know what I mean? Because it's a different, again, it's just weird. They have, they're bored in high school, but yet they made pretty good grades. You know what I mean? So they get into college, didn't learn how to study. And this is me. I got to be honest.
Same.
Yeah. I get into college and I didn't know how to study because I didn't have to. Like, I was just like, I got this, no problem. And then I get into college, I'm like, I may not grasp this concept very well, and I'm not very good at studying, you know what I mean? So I had to learn how to study before I learned how to learn. It was weird, So, yeah, I mean, as much as I can say this, Alan, AI is, as much as I don't want to like it. I don't, you know what I mean? But I have to learn it, It's the same way with taxes. I don't like taxes, but I gotta know because it's not really going anywhere. Like this is the new phase of our lives. I don't want to know taxes. I don't want to really know about economics and all this kind of stuff. I don't want to, nobody balances their checkbook anymore, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, you got to watch out for this stuff. You got to know it. You got to understand, at least to a level that you can function in it.
Agree. 100%. I think we're always going to be cautious and weary of anything new. You've seen it before in construction. You saw it when AutoCAD became a thing. You saw it when Revit became a thing, when BIM became a thing. Every new tool that's introduced, every new methodology, tech, it's going to come with growing pains. And if it's used responsibly, though, if you are active, like you're doing, in learning the tool and seeing how it's applicable specifically to you, seeing the benefits that you can glean off of it, it eventually sticks. And I think that's the whole implementation. To bring it all back, it's the whole implementation failing thing. It's when a tech company just releases the tool, that's the equivalent of them, shipping out that hammer and it arrives at your doorstep. What do you do next? What do you do next with that tool is what defines how your relationship with that tool is going to be. If you fear it, you're going to avoid it, and you're not going to use it a lot, and you're going to be apprehensive. And so you're never going to actually crack the code and get past that initial wall where you actually start learning it and start using it more, and it actually benefits you. And that applies to everything. I think I told you the last time we talked, even with like Procore or Autodesk products, I have people who will sit down for a few weeks training sessions. They'll have their whole team there. They'll do it. And then a year later, they're back and doing it again because it didn't stick or they need a refresher. That's just human nature.
Yeah.
If you don't use the tool often, it's not magic either.
Right. Yeah.
Some people I think that's why AI is like,
well, okay. Yeah. And I think and I agree with you. We're onto that thing. We're onto that thing that basically says, hey, look, man, BIM at one point in time, I was talking to KP Reddy about this, and he's like, he had written a book about how BIM was going to change the world.
Yeah. I read that book.
Yeah. And I was like, and he's like, I was totally wrong. And the same thing, AutoCAD, Revit, BIM, whatever, right? All these new technologies come out. AI is the same thing, folks. And if we want to quell anybody's mind about where this is going, it only goes as far as you take it. Right? BIM was supposed to be the universal truth of job sites. It's not. I mean, it's a great tool and you can utilize it, and you could probably utilize it more with AI now. We can bring it, more into fruition and do these things. Great. We need all those things. But guess what? Your engagement with it is really going to be the extent of its effectiveness. Period.
Yes, sir.
And that's kind of where it's at. And I have to say, I appreciate folks like you who are out there, trying to teach folks how to make it work, showing folks that, AI and this technology can be a benefit to you. And let me show you how, because that's one of the things a lot of people don't do. Guys like me, we sit and we talk about it, but we got guys like you who are out there actually showing it and making it happen. And I appreciate that.
I just want people to stay curious and discover. It's all about discovery, self-discovery of what are your pain points? How can it actually help you? And having the curiosity to take that step of actually, let's use the tools. Let's see what we can do with this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, 45 minutes runs fast around here like it always does. Alan, thanks so much for visiting with me today. One last time before we go, how can folks get a hold of you?
You guys can find me on LinkedIn, Alan Espinoza, and reach out to me. Send me a message. I get cold messages all the time, and I respond to most of them.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions about AI or theme parks or, anything that I've done in my past, right now I'm working on so many different projects. I've got space construction projects coming up. So maybe next time we talk, we either talk about space construction or you take me up on my offer of going to a theme park in Orlando and we just nerd out on theme park construction.
Yeah, right. We definitely got to do that. We've got to do that, podcasting from the roller coaster. Love it.
That'd be awesome, man. Robert, it was an absolute pleasure, brother.
Yeah, good talking with you too. Folks, that's it for this episode of ConTech Exec Podcast. We'll see you next week.